Hello everyone, welcome to this video. So I received a request to talk a bit about inspiration. I thought a great way to begin an ongoing conversation about inspiration would be to share some of my favorite reference books. I think the topic of inspiration is so fun and it's essential when you're making work to be thinking about the things that are motivating you to be creating art in the first place. I think one of the best parts of a project is doing research and getting excited, so that's where inspiration comes in. But it's also extremely daunting because it's so extensive and expanding. There's just so much to talk about. There's so many inspirations. Off the top of my head, I'm inspired by nature, music, art and artists, and going to museums, movies, TV shows, and then lots of books. So I think with YouTube, I'd like to make a series about inspiration so that I can divide the categories into their own individual videos and then dive deep into them. So the books I'm going to be talking about today are primarily picture books. Some of them also have text. I think most of them also have text. Most of them also have text, but they're very picture heavy books. And they're all books that I own. I'm a big library person, so a lot of inspirations through the years have come from me going to the library, taking out books, making drawings and sketches, reading and getting inspired by those. But these are the ones that I own in my personal collection, so I can always go back to them. So I will get started with the first book. The first book I have is The Pocket Encyclopedia of Roses by H. Edlund. There's so much beautiful imagery in here. There is also some text that talks about where the roses come from, the different varieties. Really, it's just like spectacular color stories of roses. The next book is a grouping of books, which is part of a series called Knowledge Through Color. The first one that I got was Snakes of the World. I got this at the Antique Emporium in Asbury Park, New Jersey, and I guess it was by itself and it jumped out at me because I was making a lot of work with snakes. I like using snakes in my work because they represent the goddess. And then once I read this, towards the end of the book, they list all the other Knowledge Through Color books that exist. So I started looking them up on Etsy and started my own collection of them. So I have Knowledge Through Color cats. I have seabirds here. I have one on magic, I have one on weather. These are the ones that I grabbed. And then this is not a Knowledge Through Color book, but I also have this book on trees. It's in a similar vein as Knowledge Through Color with just beautiful illustrations and facts about trees. So I really like this one too, which I got in New Paltz, New York State on a little road trip. Okay, the next book is Taschen's Book of Alchemy and Mysticism. This is one of my favorite books. The imagery in here is outstanding. I love the contents as well and how it's organized. Taschen always makes beautiful books. The next book I have is another Taschen book, collaborated with the Library of Esoterica. This is the one on tarot. There's a series of these books and they're all really beautiful. They've come out within the past couple of years, I think. It's kind of a new project. And the tarot one is my favorite so far. I only have tarot and astrology actually, but I would love to get the book on witchcraft or witches, and I'd also love the book on plant magic. The tarot is a huge inspiration of mine, and this book has really cool images from different artists portraying each card, as well as a discussion about each of the major arcana cards. I love looking at this book for inspiration, especially if I'm working on a specific major arcana card that I want to read about. I like to grab this book. Okay, the next book is the North American Wildlife Encyclopedia, or Reader's Digest North American Wildlife. I don't have the original jacket, but this one's got a little embossed chipmunk, so that's great. This is one of my all-time favorite, most referenced books. I started reading this cover to cover, but I did give up, and now I kind of just reference it here and there if I want an anatomy reference for an animal, or if I want to flip open to a page and see something cool and read about it. There's just tons of beautiful nature illustrations. It's also a book that Lewis and I reference when we go on hikes and we see a certain kind of duck that we're like, what duck is that? And then we come home and look at the Reader's Digest book and figure it out. Okay, next is Native Funk and Flash. This is by Alexandra Jacopetti Hart and Jerry Wainwright. This is an incredible book of arts and crafts from the 1960s. It's like outsider art, embroidery, sculpture. It's just the coolest stuff, applique, quilting, and little tidbits about the people who have made these things, as well as like poetry. It's just extremely cool. I love looking through this book and seeing the things that people used to make and wear. I love the arts and crafts movement. Love the 1960s and 70s. The next book I'm going to talk about is the Book of Symbols. This is also a Taschen book. I was actually at someone's house in Brooklyn randomly after me and a couple of friends went to the Guggenheim to see a Hilma af Klint show, or the Hilma af Klint show that was there, and had a spectacular time at the art show. I'm so happy I went. That was one of those shows that will stick with me forever. But we like randomly went to one of my friends that I was with cousin's house in Brooklyn, which is like not something that I remember particularly wanting to do because I tend to want to be home at a reasonable hour and go to bed. But anyways, when we were at her cousin's apartment, I saw this book on their coffee table and it immediately caught my attention and I had to look through it, and then also had to have it. It's so extensive. It's organized into different tabs like creation and the cosmos, and then it goes through different symbols having to do with that: snow, rain, whirlpool, plant world, animal world, human world, and spirit world. To open up to a random page and read about it and get inspired, or do a drawing prompt based off of what I open up to. This book is great. I highly recommend it if you're into symbolism and using symbols in your work. Fantastic use of imagery. Taschen strikes again. Okay, so the next book that I have in this pile is called Quilts, Quilts, Quilts: The Complete Guide to Quilt Making. This specific copy of this book I got secondhand online, but I used to have my mom's copy and it got ruined in a flood actually, and I had to throw it out. It was very sad, but my mom let me have her copy that got damaged, and I rebought it because I like to look at this so much. And even though I don't really make traditional quilts yet, I just love this book. Also, lots of useful information and templates for quilting. I'm always pulling this out and just kind of flipping through the pages and looking at the quilts and getting inspired to do quilting. Okay, the next book I have is Parker's Astrology, which I showed in the Capricorn Hoop tutorial video. I really mostly just reference the beginning pages of this book where they have the illustrations. I like the illustrations a lot of the different signs and their little outfits, and then all the plants that correlate to them. It's a great book. And then the back of the book is more like planetary placements, but as far as the illustrations go, even the cover. The next book I have here is by Henry Terry. It's called A Victorian Flower Album. I got this secondhand online. It doesn't look like much, but the inside is really beautiful. I believe it's organized by seasons. Just lots of illustrations of flowers. These are great reference imagery for embroidery. The colors are reduced where there's not too much shading. I think that's a very helpful thing to see when you're embroidering and starting out and don't want to get too crazy with complexity. Looking at simpler illustrations of flowers that are a bit more graphic can help you visualize how to choose colors and like separate petals and stuff. Yeah, I don't know. I hope that makes sense. This is a great book. The art is so cute. So this is a book by Linda Perry on William Morris and his textiles. I love William Morris and I love specifically his work as textiles. So yeah, this is both a book about William Morris, but also shows details of his work and like the different stages of his work. Yeah, I love the color stories in this book of the different flowers, and the design elements I think are very helpful to see, again, how colors are used and separated from each other. The next book I have here is The Unicorn Tapestries. This is a book that the Metropolitan Museum of Art put out on the famous unicorn tapestries. It's a lot of text, but then there's also imagery of the tapestries as well as details, as well as work that is relevant to them. Even though weaving is different from embroidery, I think that the shading is really helpful to see because it's a bit simplistic and broken down into a high contrast shading. I love the use of plants, and I like the colors of this era. The castles in it are really cool. Unicorn tapestries are a big inspiration of mine. The next book I have is a fashion book. It's 18th century fashion in detail, which I've acquired recently. I bought it for myself from the internet, but I used to take this book out quite often from my local library, to the point that I thought I would buy a version of my own. It shows details of garments. I'd love to get into making garments in a historical way, but especially the segment on embroidery, obviously I love so much to see. That's my favorite part, of course, and the decorativeness of all of the garments. Everything is just so special in here. I think that's inspiring for me to see. I want to make work that is highly decorated and very special. I have a book on Hieronymus Bosch, and it's actually not in English. I got this online. I think it might be in German, I'm not sure, but I got it for the images. I feel very inspired by how intricate Bosch's work is, all the little details. So I like looking at this, and I also really like the color use. How things can be very muted, but then you'll have like a pop of pink or blue or red. This is a great reference book for creativity. Anyways, that's that. So the next book I have is also part of a series that I do have almost all of the books from, but I just grabbed Magical Beasts, and this is from the Enchanted World series, and they're like picture books, but also they've got stories throughout them about whatever specific topic the book is about, from different cultures too, which is very cool. I also have witches and witchcraft and like magical lands, and a book on dragons, and I think like sea nymphs and mermaids, fairies. And then speaking of fairies, I grabbed Fairies by Brian Froud. This has been one of my favorite books for a really, really long time. Ever since I was a tween and would walk to the library in my hometown, I would check out this book so frequently, or just go there and sit and read it. I just love it. Brian Froud did work with Jim Henson on The Dark Crystal, so you can kind of see his influences there. I just love that this book is really respectful to the idea of fairies and magic in nature, and it's a really fun time, and the illustrations are beautiful. I don't think that my work necessarily looks like Brian Froud's. He's got like a darkness to his work, but I would love to practice drawing a bit more like him and incorporating the roots and pointiness of wings and whatnot. But yeah, this is one of my favorite books. Okay, I'm down to 2 more books. The first one is The Giant Golden Book of Birds, which is like a book that lately I can't get enough of. I'm definitely going through a bird phase. The illustrations are so good. I wish that there was a giant book of every animal with these spectacular illustrations, but I'm especially into birds right now, so it's perfect for reference images like color imagery, the anatomy of certain kinds of birds and color placement. It's so good. I love this book, and it's really fun to read because there's great writing about the birds, really funny titles for the different bird categories. Anyways, yeah, I love this book. I think I got this also at the Antique Emporium, either that or like online on Etsy or something. Okay, the last book I have is very hefty. It is The Complete Costume History. This is another Taschen book. It's so big, but it's so wonderful, especially for fashion referencing and like getting ideas for intricate sleeves. I'm also very inspired by the color usage in this book and the illustrations. It's pretty much exclusively illustration. There are some blurbs throughout the book, but it goes through different time periods, different cultures, and it's just an extensive look at clothing, details, and even furniture items and stuff. I love this book. I think it's really cool. I definitely want to try to make some of the clothes in here. That's one of my goals. Yeah, I've been looking at this a lot, and every time I open it up, I just get really excited and happy and inspired in some way or another. Those are the books that I keep coming back to for inspiration. Let me know what some of your favorite books are in the comments, and I hope you liked this video, and I hope it was helpful, and maybe you got inspired by some of these books or you want to try to find them online as well. A very special thank you to my 5 patrons out there. Thank you so much for the support. It means so much to me, and thank you everyone for watching. If you'd like to check out my Patreon, it's patreon.com/TessaPerlo, and I'm sharing some process videos as well as random pictures. I'm not posting too often, but I am trying to be somewhat consistent. I hope you enjoy the rest of your week, and I'll be back again soon with a tutorial of some sort. Yeah, bye!